Since it first came around in 2010, the Money in the Bank pay-per-view has been all about ladder matches. And we're not just talking about the scramble for the briefcase. Seth Rollins fought Dean Ambrose for the WWE title in a ladder match in 2015. The belt was also suspended above the ring in 2014, and, well, that's it, but you get the point. There have been plenty of matches to take place at this show that haven't involved a house painter's best friend, and we think it's about time they get elevated to the top rung. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 best non-ladder matches at Money in the Bank. Join us! Number 10, The New Day vs. the Usos in 2017. Move over Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho. Get lost Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe. See you later Sami Zayn and Mike Kanellis. The best feud of 2017 was easily between The New Day and the Usos. Two contenders for the best teams of their generation, these groups fought each other multiple times across the year and never disappointed. They even managed to have a banger on the SummerSlam pre-show. The pre-show, for goodness sake. That's where good wrestling goes to die. Their first tussle was at Money in the Bank, and admittedly, it was probably the worst of the bunch. Still though, when the feud is this great, even the worst is pretty damn good. Both teams had fought before, but that was when the Usos were boring babyfaces and the New Day were goofy heels. The two sides were a bit more serious now, and that was on full display here. Their chemistry was off the charts as Jimmy, Jay, Big E, and Kofi left it all in the ring as they battled for the SmackDown tag titles. Dodgy booking got in the way when the Bloodline brothers retained their belts with a count-out loss, but everything before that was top-notch. Number 9, John Cena vs. Mark Henry in 2013. I've got 2 words for ya. No, not those ones. Instead, this story is all about the now infamous salmon jacket. On the June 17th, 2013 episode of Raw, Mark Henry came down to the ring in his finest fish-colored attire and gave an emotional speech about how he was going to retire. Hey, that rhymes. Neat. He suckered everyone in, including WWE Champion John Cena, who he then hit with a World's Strongest Slam to reveal the whole thing as one giant trap. Seriously, highlight of Henry's entire career. This led to a title match at Money in the Bank, with Henry chasing the one major championship he had never won. The fantastic build really helped create a buzz around this match, even if the face-heel dynamics were a little off, as 2013 was peak We Hate Cena time for many fans. Though we were a few years removed from his Hall of Pain glory days, Henry still played the role of monster villain to perfection. Cena's struggles to deal with the big man made for compelling viewing, as fans wondered if WWE would put the belt on Mark for one last run. I mean, they didn't, but this was still bloody good. Number 8, John Cena vs. Kevin Owens in 2015. 2 years after he fought a wrestler from the past at Money in the Bank, Big Match John took to the ring against one from the future. As in, he was the future of the company. He hadn't traveled back in time that we know of. Kevin Owens had made a hugely impactful main roster debut earlier that year by specifically targeting Cena. Owens had berated John for making a mockery of pro wrestling and had fought him in his first pay-per-view match at Elimination Chamber. And you'll never guess what? He won! Clean! Nobody did that to Cena in 2015. A couple of weeks later, Cena got his revenge by beating Owens in a rematch. Cue loads of booing. Still, these two were absolutely dynamite in the ring together and built expertly on their previous encounter. Even though KO didn't score the double over Cena, this was still a promising sign that he could have multiple great matches with a big name. All this led to one more match between the two at Battleground, with Cena's United States Championship on the line. And guess what? Cena won this one too. Oh, can't have everything, I guess. Number 7, Charlotte Flair vs. Rhea Ripley in 2021. In between their pair of Mania matches, Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley squared off at 2021's Money in the Bank for Ripley's Raw Women's title. This was the first pay-per-view to have fans back following COVID, and they kinda crapped all over this match. To be fair, WWE had done themselves no favors. A terrible build-up left fans chanting for Becky Lynch as this match started, someone who wasn't even on the card. However, things would soon change. Flair and Ripley worked so well together that they were able to get the crowd back on their side. By the time Flair submitted Ripley to win the belt, the crowd were hanging on every single move. A great example of two performers letting the wrestling do the talking. Flair versus Ripley was an absolute joy to watch. Number 6, Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles in 2019. Remember when WWE booked Seth Rollins and Kofi Kingston in a winner-takes-all match the night after both men won world titles at WrestleMania? You know, the one where the bar interfered and nobody actually won. God, that was stupid. The company made up for this baffling decision by having Rollins' first pay-per-view title defense be against AJ Styles at Money in the Bank. On paper, you couldn't have asked for two better opponents, and thankfully, this promise was more than met inside the ropes. Both men could get a good match out of a wet paper bag, so putting them together was truly inspired. Their back and forth was simply incredible, even if nobody actually thought Seth was going to be dethroned this early into the run. One highlight came when AJ somehow defied physics to counter a stomp into the Styles clash. Don't ask me how he did it, because I genuinely have no idea. I just know that it was rad as hell, bro. In the end, Rollins got the win, but both men came out of this encounter looking like absolute superstars. The champ would then go on to feud with Baron Corbin. Number 5, the Usos versus the Street Profits in 2022. Though their greatest rivalry might have been with the New Day, the Usos' greatest match at Money in the Bank happened against Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford of the Street Profits. After beating the undisputed tag team champions via countout, they love that finish, don't they? The Profits earned a match against the Usos at the upcoming pay-per-view. It was obviously gonna be fun, but nobody expected it to go quite this hard. For 23 minutes, both teams put on an absolute clinic. All four shone as individuals and in their respective units, creating a display so fluid it's amazing that they didn't just soak into the mat. The crowd was also phenomenal, wholeheartedly supporting the idea that Ford and Dawkins could have beaten Jimmy and Jay that night. Sadly, it wasn't to be though, as Montez took a 1D from the champs and was pinned for the 3 count. Wait a second, his shoulder was off the mat! What is it with the Usos and wonky finishes at Money in the Bank? Better call Jeff Jarrett and tell him to be the special guest referee at SummerSlam. That should sort this whole mess out. Number 4, CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan in 2012. Whilst John Cena was dicking about fighting John Laurinaitis and The Big Show in 2012, we somehow missed a multi-month world title feud between CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. The two Ring of Honor originals first met on pay-per-view at Over the Limit, which was main evented by Cena losing to a middle-aged executive in a morph suit. Great stuff. Their feud got blown off in style at Money in the Bank when WWE gave them almost half an hour in a no disqualification match. Be still, my little indie-loving heart. Punk and Bryan batted 7 shades of stuffing out of each other as the straight-edge superstar's future wife AJ Lee watched on as special guest ref. Isn't it cute when couples do things together? After all the violence and some great technical wrestling, Punk put D-Bry away with a devastating superplex through a table. This was enough to finally end the match and put their beef to an end. Was this the main event? No, of course not. That went to John Cena winning the Money in the Bank briefcase when it accidentally came loose from its hook. You can sort of see why Punk left, can't you? Number 3, AJ Styles versus John Cena in 2016. The wrestling universe glitched out on the May 30th, 2016 episode of Raw when John Cena and AJ Styles shared a WWE ring for the first time. Both men had been the faces of their respective sectors for the last decade, and seeing them occupy the same space was totally surreal. And then AJ knocked Cena's head off. The Phenomenal One's heel turn and alignment with the Good Brothers led to the two icons squaring off for the first time at Money in the Bank. As you can imagine, fans were more than a little excited to see them fight. To the shock of absolutely nobody, these two made magic together. Cena was really hitting his stride as a big match performer at this time, and as we said earlier, Styles could have won a Match of the Year award competing against a cardboard cutout of a horse. Styles went on to win with a huge assist from Anderson and Gallows, but this match was still great and was the first step towards their epic encounter at SummerSlam a few months later. Job well done. Number 2, Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns in 2016. 2016. The main event of Money in the Bank 2016 was a match between two former members of one of WWE's most popular stables. Seth Rollins had returned from injury at Extreme Rules and had immediately thrown down the gauntlet to WWE champion Roman Reigns. Rollins had been forced to vacate the belt the previous year and was very keen to get it back from his ex-colleague. Their world title match had a proper big fight feel to it, with the crowd all too aware of each man's history with the other. I mean, it helped that they were both really great wrestlers, no matter how much we wanted Roman Reigns to go away and never come back at the time. This contest more than lived up to the hype, as these two gave it their all. After several false finishes, including an insane spear into pedigree counter, Rollins picked up the win and the gold by pinning Reigns to the mat. Not that it was technically part of the match, but while we're here, let's talk about Dean Ambrose cashing in on Seth immediately after the conclusion of the bout. Seriously, watching Dean get his revenge on his fiercest rival was the best kind of satisfaction. Number 1, CM Punk vs John Cena in 2011. I mean, come on, it had to be, didn't it? WWE's first Dave Meltzer 5-star match in 14 years. The high point of one of the most exciting stories in company history. The match that got so many lapsed fans back into wrestling. Sorry, but our hands were tied. The story of CM Punk versus John Cena at Money in the Bank 2011 is woven into the fabric of wrestling's DNA. Cena was the corporate face of WWE's bland PG era. Punk was the edgy rebel who wasn't afraid to speak truth to power. He sat on the ramp, said hi to Colt Cabana, and then announced that his contract was running out and he wanted to take the WWE title with him. The match itself was fantastic, and that Chicago crowd were absolutely rabid and genuinely might have torn the building down had their hometown hero not won. For its place in wrestling history, Punk vs Cena will go down as the single best match in the history of Money in the Bank, ladders or not.